over, and y'all have a lot to learn. But welcome to the Introduction to Pre-Sales Discover Solutions info session. We are going to really use this space to help you learn more about pre-sales and figure out, hey, is this a good pathway for you? Because making a career change is a big shift, and you want to make sure you're well educated and prepared. So, what are we going to dive into today? So, we are going to talk about what is pre-sales, start at the basics. We are going to dive into what skills are really needed for this profession. We are going to chat about why should you consider career in pre-sales. We're also going to talk a little bit about our program, PreSales Academy, because we are big fans of it. And you all will also have an opportunity to meet one of our recent graduates from our program. Malona is here today, and she'll share a little bit about her experience later in this webinar when we promote her to a panelist. And then we will open the space for more additional Q&A. So as a reminder, if you have any questions, use the Q&A feature so that we can answer them throughout the whole session. So without further ado, let's get into a quick overview of who is here and who's kind of involved in the PreSales Academy experience. So kicking it off, I'm actually going to have my co-presenter present herself first, and then we'll get into the people who aren't here.
Thanks so much, Nina. It's fabulous to see you all here today. I'm really excited to chat with you a little bit about the pre-sales world and PreSales Academy. My name is Liz Anderson. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Director of Learning here at PreSales Collective. Been here for a year and a half now. And basically am in charge of all of our learning and enablement programs, which also includes PreSales Academy. I've been in the pre-sales space for well over a decade, and I absolutely love it. I remember the first time that I became my title was solutions consultant, and it changed my life. It was absolutely fabulous. So happy to talk to you a little bit about that today. Nina, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Perfect. Well, before I introduce myself, I want to do a quick introduction on who's not here. So Jack Cochran is our general manager for PreSales Collective. Fun fact, PreSales Academy and PreSales Collective are one and the same. So if you hear that interchanged here, it's because we're all part of the same team here trying to help grow the pre-sales community. As well as we have Winnie Delson. Winnie is our lead training program manager. She comes from a background of higher education, but's been with PreSales Collective for almost 2.5 years now. So we've seen and assisted a lot of students in their journey. And my name is Nina Berger. I am the Senior Career Services Manager, and I also come from a higher ed background. My favorite thing about working with pre-sales professionals as well as helping people through enablement programs is really giving y'all the opportunity to learn, refine your skills, and feel more confident as you're taking the next step, whether that's in your current role or making a career change. So that's a little bit about the team who behind this experience, because I find that our experience is really made by the people who are involved with it, which we'll get a little bit more into that later. So let's do a quick little teaser before we get into what is pre-sales. So we are here because we believe that pre-sales is an amazing job opportunity to explore. We've helped a lot of different professionals make the shift into pre-sales, and a lot of people come to us asking, hey, do I need to have a set background instead of experiences to make the shift into pre-sales? And I always like to say that there's no set pathway you need to have been on to make the shift into pre-sales. This is a quick example of some of the types of students we see making the shift into pre-sales. For example, Cassie came from an educator background, so she had highly transferable skills that she could leverage into pre-sales, but she didn't come from a sales or a tech background. But I've also seen people who come from those backgrounds and make that successful transition. For example, Nico came from a sales background. He had a little bit of that law school side to him, but he was working in tech sales and he wanted to marry those two things together, and that's how he ended up at Litify. While Camilla came from a more technical background, wanted to leverage those technical skills, but in a more sales engineer role where she has more of a people aspect to it. And so that's what led her to Tenable. But the big thing when exploring pre-sales and thinking about, hey, is this a pathway for me, is there's a lot of different background experiences and skills you could bring into this space that can be very valuable at a variety of companies, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of different companies that have pre-sales roles. So let's get a little bit into this so you can kind of paint a better picture of your fit. So starting at the top, what is pre-sales? When I'm talking about what is pre-sales, I really like to talk about it from the function that it sits in. The pre-sales role sits in the sales process for technology. So is ultimately a sales function that exists in business to business technology sales. So business to business, when you're thinking about that term, it's usually in the space referred to as B2B. And when we're thinking about technology sales, you're often going to see the word SaaS being thrown around. SaaS means software as a service. But for the sake of this presentation, think of it as a role that exists when you're selling a piece of software. So when I'm thinking about what a pre-sales role is, I need to think about all the different roles that exist in the tech sales process. There are 3 core roles that really exist in this process. The first role is pretty common for people who might have had a little exposure to tech sales, and that is the sales development rep, or SDR. This is typically the role that starts the sales process. They're that person who finds the customer, finds the opportunity, and kind of brings them into the pipeline. They are doing a bunch of cold calling. They are coordinating introductions with the account executive, and they are bringing in customers, which leads us to our next role, which is the account executive. So the account executive is another major player in the tech sales process. They are ultimately the account relationship manager. They are the one who's closing the deal. They're really going to see the life cycle of that opportunity once it's been brought into the pipeline by the sales development rep. And they're ultimately the one who's going to negotiate and close a typical sales deal. So you have the opener, you have the closer, but where is the pre-sales role? Well, I like to say that role's kind of in the middle. So the solutions consultant or pre-sales role really exists in the middle of the sales process. They're the one who comes in as that solutions expert when the customer is ready to dive deeper into the product. They are coming in and showcasing what the software solution can do. They are helping present the product. They are really showcasing, hey, this is what our product does. This is what issues it can help solve, and really help seal the deal, honestly, of a lot of sales. So let me give you a big picture example. Let's say you are a small business looking to adopt a video conferencing platform. So maybe you will end up exploring a piece of software like Zoom, where we are all today. And as you're going through the sales process, you will be introduced to an account executive that helps you kind of manage the sale, but you'll also be introduced to that pre-sales professional who will present a demo of Zoom and how it works to really convince you, hey, this is something you might need for your company. And it's more than just one singular solution you're looking to fix. So there's a lot more complexity to the solutions engineer or solutions consultant pre-sales role. So let's dive a little bit deeper into what does that role do to paint a deeper picture for you all. So within this role, you are really coming in to help guide that customer journey. So a big aspect of that is completing product demos. So you are going to showcase how that piece of product or software that you are selling can really help solve that customer's business challenges. And that will require you to tailor what you're showing to your audience, make it really specific. And sometimes it requires you to exercise some technical skills to show the right things. This can be a really energizing part of the role because you get to present to an audience, you get to engage with people, and it's not always the same presentation all the time. You also will lead discovery meetings. So this usually will happen before you do a demo presentation. And this is a time where you're connecting with the customer, learning more about them, and gathering information that you're going to use for a future demo presentation. You also will help answer technical and business questions throughout the sales process because you're the product expert. You know the ins and outs of this product, and you need to help make sure that the customer is getting their questions answered and ultimately seeing the value of what you're selling. And throughout this whole process, you're going to be building relationships, whether that is with the customer, whether it's with the rest of the people on your sales team. Account executives are going to be someone you're really building relationships with, as well as internal partners at your company. Because when you sit so closely to the product, but also the customer, you have a lot of room to gain some really significant insights on how is the market really looking at your product and how is it being received, which filters into providing feedback. This role has a really great opportunity to provide feedback that's valuable for a company and its growth over time. So I've dropped a lot of terms in regards to what a solution consultant does, but just to make sure everyone's on the same page, there are a lot of titles when it comes to pre-sales. Is just a nuance of this profession. So as you're exploring this field, it's perfectly fine to look at a role at one company called a sales engineer and look at another role at another company called a solutions consultant, and the position descriptions to be exactly the same, because every company likes to call this role something different based off how they view their product. Some companies are like, hey, our product is very technical, so the person who's presenting this must be an engineer. Other people are like, hey, no, our product's a little bit more consultative. It's a little bit more helpful. We want this person to seem like an aid to the process, so they're going to be a solutions consultant. These are the titles that we see most common in this profession, but it's really important to think about, hey, even if it has a different title, how is this role really still speaking to the main components of what pre-sales is, which was those details I was showing before of product demonstrations, discovery meetings, etc. But before we wrap up and talk about skills needed for pre-sales, I do want to talk about what is not required for pre-sales, just to make sure we're on the same page. So what is not required is there is no cold calling usually in pre-sales because you exist in the middle of the sales process. That's usually still reserved for your business development reps or sales development reps, the front end openers of the sales process. Usually you don't see any negotiations of a typical pre-sales role because you are someone who just jumps in as more of a consultative role. You're not the one who ultimately handles the life cycle of the sale like an account executive. And usually you don't see a lot of coding in this role. I would say depending on the company and the product you're selling, that will look different, but there's a variety of roles and types of technologies out there. And you're never going to be in a role where you're building a product because that's usually reserved for more of a software engineer compared to a sales engineer. So those are the big things to keep in mind when you're just learning about what is pre-sales. But let's kind of shift gears and talk about what skills are needed for pre-sales, because like I mentioned before, we've seen a lot of career changers come into this program, into this profession from a variety of backgrounds. And why they're a good fit is because they had foundational skills that they can leverage into this role. So I'm going to highlight 4 skills that I have found time and time again to be really important for this profession, especially for career changers looking to make the shift into pre-sales. First is communication. I feel like this one's like, of course, this is on the list. When I talk about communication, I'm talking about both verbal and written. So you need to have excellent communication skills when you are presenting your product. You need to effectively convey ideas and the benefits of your solution to both technical and non-technical audiences. So the ability to shift your communication style to different personas is going to be important. But you also have to have communication skills that really are rooted in how are you engaging people? What's the presence you bring into this space? Because there is a difference between being an effective communicator and an engaging communicator. Being able to help people learn through effective communication and leverage that into how you're presenting and training someone and helping them learn is really important for pre-sales. I see this through a lot of different roles as people are making the shift into pre-sales. You could have great communication skills from a variety of backgrounds and bring it into pre-sales, but it does need to be effective and engaging. The next thing you really need to bring into pre-sales is technical curiosity. some people, when they look at pre-sales, are like, oh, you're the presenter. You just need to present and engage. There is that strong technical side of a pre-sales role since you are that product expert. And so you need to have technical curiosity. Note this skill, it doesn't say you need to have technical skills. You have to have technical curiosity. So that desire to develop a deep understanding of a company's products or a technical topic. You need to have that thirst to learn new things and ramp up quickly because a lot of products that exist out there, not every company is going to expect you to know the ins and outs of their product because let's face it, not everyone has exposure to all these software products out there. So you need to have that curiosity that allows you to dive in, learn new things, and run with it. And that's what's really going to help propel you through and into your initial pre-sales role. In addition, you're going to have a lot of problem solving skills you bring into the space. And problem solving can come from a variety of backgrounds. People from health professionals to people who've actually worked in the sales process. You have to use problem solving usually on a day-to-day basis when things are coming up and you're not expecting it. And within the pre-sale space, you need to navigate through challenges by identifying customer pain points. You need to tailor your solutions that you're showing. And you need to be adaptive and leverage creative thinking because that is going to allow you to shift and adjust based off the customers and the scenarios you're being exposed to. And ultimately, you need to think about, hey, do I like solving problems? Do I like bringing in solutions? Because if you do, that's going to relate highly to pre-sales because you are that solutions person who's coming in helping solving problems for companies. And last but not least, you need to have strong collaboration skills coming into this space. And you need to not only have collaboration with the customers you're working with, but you have to work seamlessly with other people in your sales process, engineering teams, and make sure everyone's on the same page. So if you're someone who thrives with stakeholder management or project management or just building relationships, that's something that can really be seen as relating to having strong collaboration skills and needed for pre-sales. If you're someone who's like, I do not like working with people, might not be the best space for you because this is a role that is highly collaborative and all the hiring managers I've ever talked to are always looking for someone who demonstrates strong collaboration skills. So that being said, those are my top 4 skills that I think are necessary for pre-sales. Before I move on, let me see if there's any questions in the Q&A. I do not see anything right now. As a general reminder, if you have any questions, drop in the Q&A so that we can get to it later. But there's going to be a lot more content in this presentation. So if I didn't cover it now, it might be covered later. So feel free to drop a question in whenever you like. So let's continue on. Why pre-sales? I talked about what activities you do. I talked about what skills you need. But okay, if I have the skills and I know the activities, why should I pursue this career? Well, since we have developed our pre-sales collective community, we have connected and talked with dozens of pre-sales professionals on a daily basis, honestly. And we hear all the time how people love this profession, how they wish they found it earlier in their career, and why they continue to show up every day, do this job, and they're happy with what they're doing. And there's a lot of reasons why, but I think one of the biggest reasons why is because this is a really dynamic profession. This is a profession, first of all, that offers a fast-paced and dynamic environment where you get to engage with cutting-edge technologies and innovative solutions, which it makes this role fresh. And I feel like that environment really filters into one big aspect of this role, which is variety of challenges. This role and every client interaction you will have will put you in spaces where you have to think differently. You have to try new things because every time you meet with a customer, it's going to probably look very different. And that does put you in a space where you get to think critically and creatively and make tailored solutions to what you're showing the customers, which it can be exciting and makes you feel like, hey, I'm doing something new every day. I'm not doing the same old, same old. The next thing I find that makes this profession dynamic is the role impact. Have you ever been in a position where you're like, if I wasn't in this role and this role didn't exist, I think this company would be perfectly fine without it. If the pre-sales role didn't exist, a lot of companies wouldn't sell their products. And that's where role impact comes in. Being in a role where you really affect the sales process can be very rewarding because hey, if I nail this presentation, this customer will understand the value of this product and they will buy it, thus helping our company generate revenue. When you're sitting on the front end of the sales process and helping generate revenue, you really do feel the role impact, and it makes you feel like, hey, the work that I'm doing really matters long term, is an impactful contribution to the larger picture. And another aspect that I think comes up time and time again is career growth. This role really does offer opportunities for career advancement and development long term. The skills that you learn for pre-sales are highly transferable, and that could lead you to growth within the role, but also tangential to the role. You can start going to managerial aspects in pre-sales, or you could go into roles that are a little bit more focused on project management or specialized for technical things. I love the aspect of being able to go into a profession that allows you flexibility long term and that growth, because I've chatted with a lot of professionals. Sometimes they get into the space of like, hey, Nina, I don't have opportunities to grow in my career. I'm hitting the ceiling. I haven't seen that within pre-sales because there's so much variety and transferable skills. Plus, it never hurts to see a little bit of high earning potential in pre-sales, especially because when you are in a role that has such an impact on a company's success, you do typically will see a higher salary and higher earning potential in this profession because this is a role that needs to see results. And when you're selling stuff that really needs to connect to a higher, like another business, and it's maybe a multi-million-dollar deal, they want to compensate their employees properly. So usually what we're seeing in this profession is most people are averaging 118K starting compensation. Sorry, that's actually based off students are coming out of PreSales Academy. So usually they're seeing around 118K depending on the company and product, but you also will see that growth in income over time as you're becoming more of a senior member of a team or growing into more of a full-fledged role. So as a reminder, these are some of the companies that we typically will see hire sales engineers. I know I mentioned Zoom before, but here's some more examples. If you're thinking of a piece of software that you use day to day, usually you'll see some form of sales team trying to sell it. So that's just something to keep in mind. So that being said, I am going to take a quick pause to hand it over to Liz. Let me see if the question that was asked is worth answering now or later. I'm going to answer this question later about career shift because it'll filter very well into our graduate story. So please, thank you so much for asking it. I'll make sure we answer it live later. That being said, I'm going to hand over to Liz. The floor is yours, Liz.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nina. One of the things I'll just mention too, as I'm thinking about the pre-sales role, it is something that, as I mentioned, I've been in it for over a decade and I could not imagine doing anything else. It's something that is so engaging and I love it and I love sharing it. And well before I got involved at PreSales Collective and PreSales Academy, from the director of learning standpoint, I even was a volunteer, which we will go into what those roles are in a little bit. But PreSales Academy is something that is near and dear to my heart, even before I worked here. So I might have a little bit of a bias as well. So let's talk about how PreSales Academy can help. It's definitely one of those things where, if you have that technical curiosity, you love problem solving solutions, helping folks solve problems, and you want to see everything all come together, it's such a rewarding role. Now, for PreSales Academy, what we want to do is make sure that we are setting you up for success no matter where you come from. So kind of building that foundational knowledge so that, again, you know what some of the skills it takes, because there's a lot of fun things around it, but pre-sales also requires a lot of different types of skills, especially as Nina mentioned, things like the communication, technical curiosity, a lot of things that are a little bit more, say, soft and nebulous. So as we think about what the program actually looks like, it's a total of 10 weeks. There are 8 topics that you will go through. And everything is based on 3 particular stages. I'm going to go over those stages in a second, but the idea is that we're making sure that throughout the process, we're setting you up for the learning journey in a way that helps maximize how you're going to learn and best retain this information. Because that's the other thing. You could learn all this stuff if you're not retaining it and being able to use it in an interview process and use it in the role. That's really what's going to matter. Within here, in some of the stages, there's also 12 live session meetings, which includes 5 role plays, which I'll get to in a second. So I mentioned there are 8 different topics that we go through. We start off with just an overview of pre-sales. What are some of the things that are part of the process, making sure that you understand from just this world, what goes into it, making sure that you understand the language and the lingo. Then we dive into sales processes and value, making sure that you understand how pre-sales fits into the larger sales cycle. We move into discovery and prep. So discovery, again, that is a part of the process that you go through, but it's also something that you do throughout the whole process. It's basically your curiosity and how are you making sure that you're getting the right answers to the questions for the problems that you need to solve. So we're talking all about here of how are you effectively preparing for the right type of client engagement. We then go into presentations and demonstrations where you will learn essential skills and techniques for showcasing these solutions effectively in a way that is engaging. We then move into technical validation, where you'll make sure to ensure that how your solutions that you are presenting wherever you are going to be will meet your client's needs technically. We then cover things like core technologies to make sure that you're updated on the latest in tools in the field, as well as finding the right pre-sales role, which helps you. It's not just about now all the things. Now it's, okay, how do you go in and prepare for that career and also interviewing for those pre-sales roles? So I mentioned before that we structure this into 3 different stages in a way to make sure that you are given the skills and knowledge necessary to successfully land, not just land that job, but be successful in that role. So the first stage, which is 4 weeks, is all online. And this is our ramp up stage where you go through like e-learnings, assignments, readings. And this is where, you typically, it's self-paced. You have about 8 to 10 hours per week during this time that you will be spending on the content. And you will have access to us through virtual support. So this is that first page. Again, building up that knowledge so that when you hit stage 2, which I would say it's the most time intensive and also the most fun, I'll say, part of the program, which is our live sessions in stage 2. So in here, we actually meet 3 to 4 times a week. Where we're all meeting live together. We do hands-on learning. So they'll be between facilitators who are teaching you these things. You'll also have role plays as a part of this to make sure that you are putting into practice some of these things. I don't want to teach you how to demo. I want you to practice how to demo so that you know that you're doing it well. And then stage 3 is really about landing that role, making sure that you are ready for your interviews and your prep ahead. I mentioned before that there are, I was a part of this program before I was even officially here as a career perspective. And part of this is because we have some of the best trainers and curriculum designers. We want to make sure that folks are learning from the folks in the field. This isn't just, some random things they talked about pre-sales and they know about it as an overall view between, folks like myself and the folks on the screen who are only a few of the folks who've been involved in the curriculum design and development. We want to make sure that you are learning from folks who are in the field, have been in the field, and know what it's like. We also want to make sure you're not just learning the right material that's from the right people, that you're actually building those connections. So while we focus on building competency through your knowledge, your skills, and your attitude, which is very important, it's also paired with the network and the connections that you make. Because sometimes, especially in this world, right, it can be difficult because you don't necessarily know the right people. You haven't been in these environments. You don't know anybody in the field. Well, what we want to make sure that we are pairing you with the right career advisors to help give you that head start in this pre-sales world. So let's go into those different roles. So, right, we talked about a few of these. So there's our PSA advisor. So this is, for instance, something like the wonderful Nina, where you get program support, job placement, coaching, and really I'll say it because Nina, Winnie, whoever your PSA advisor is, they want to see you succeed. They're going to be that cheerleader for you for quite a long time. We then have the coach role. So, as I mentioned before, there might be some role plays, or there are some role plays involved in the live sessions. So, you're going to have a coach. This is somebody who is in the pre-sales field, either a manager or somebody in the role, where they're going to help give you feedback because they're doing it themselves. They're going to help develop your competencies and provide direction in terms of things that you're doing well and things that they'd like to see you improve upon for next time, because there's going to be a couple iterations of this. And then, of course, you've got your mentor. So this is the person where they're going to help you from a career perspective and advice and guidance. Say, hey, what types of technology should I be looking at? A sounding board. You're also going to be practicing a interview with them, and many times they will help you start to get connected with other people. As I mentioned, this is only a few smattering, but of some of the folks that we have as instructors and advisors. If you look at any one individual people on here, they are absolutely fabulous in their own right. Some of these folks are very, very well respected in the industry, and the fact that they are willing to give their time and energy and attention in building up the next generation of pre-sales engineers, which is yourself. It's just a fun thing to see, especially I used to be one of them, and now I'm over on this side, and now I can help connect you all to some incredible people in the field. And lastly, I mean, we're not just trying to give you the training and send you off to figure out things on your own. We want you to come out with a few different things. One, we want you to land the solutions role that you want. Again, and that's overall, whether that's a pre-sales role, whether that's something adjacent to it. There's a lot of different ways to get there. The thing is, I want to get you into that role long term. I want you to have a successful career, and which is number two. I want to set you up for a long-term success. It's not just, it doesn't just end, to me, the success doesn't just end at getting you the role. It's, can you continue to have a successful longevity and career in pre-sales and thrive in it, which is what we've seen from PSA graduates. So with that, Nina, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Liz. No, I agree. I really love seeing kind of that shift, especially coming from the beginning to the end of the program for our students. So I have one quick slide before I introduce our guest speaker tonight, but because our program is very intentional on what we teach our students, you get so much access to such great support. There is an admissions process for Pre-Sales Academy. What I always like to say is we're always looking for the students who are a good fit, not only for the program, but also the profession. We want to see that success at the end of the day. And so what I always like to chat about with people is, when we're looking for students going into Pre-Sales Academy, what we're looking for is what I call the 5 Cs. So I'm ultimately looking for students who have a strong commitment to making this change. They have strong communication skills. They have that curiosity. They are coachable, as well as they have strong critical thinking skills. And that kind of relates back to the skills that we think are really necessary for this profession. You need to show those in the admissions process because that will give us more reassurance that, hey, you're going to be successful in this profession long term. Because if you're going through a program like this, we want to make sure you're going to hit that finish line and be happy with the results. So the admissions process, the first step is really just to submit an application. It's for us to get to know you a little bit better, get to hear a little bit more about how you're thinking in regards to your connection to the role. And then from there, we take into admissions call. There's never a commitment to enroll and sign up until after you've been accepted to the program. So I think applying is a really good first step in this journey to learn more, get connected with our team, and also get your questions answered. So something to think about as you're going along this way. But let's shift gears. Let's have someone else talk a little bit because Liz and I have been talking way too much for y'all. But I have an amazing graduate here today. Lona Clark is here from cohort 13. She's currently a sales manager at Library Pass. I know she comes from a bit of a sales process. I'll let her tell her story about how she made the shift and how she went through Pre-Sales Academy. So I'm going to hand it over to her. Lona, I am so happy you are here today. Please, if you can give a formal introduction for the group and share a little bit about yourself.
Well, as Nina said, and thank you for inviting me back, I am super excited, as you know. I'm Milana. I am a graduate of cohort 13, which actually finished summer of 2024. I am currently a regional sales manager with Library Pass. Our product is Comics Plus. So I honestly get the pleasure of speaking with libraries and educators and making sure that they have the right tools to engage their readers, to maximize their resources, and talk about things that I love: graphic novels, manga, comics. So one thing I will say and hop on with what Nina ended with is if you have a question or if you're even unsure if this is the right thing or if it seems intimidating, go ahead and apply. Just learn more about it. It is so worth it because where I am, I guarantee you, I would not have been there without going through Pre-Sales Academy. I currently, like I said, work directly with libraries and educators. That was not my background. I am, like Nina said, somebody who came from sales, very broad industry. And something that I never thought about was to look at things that interest me. And that's something that I wouldn't have considered without going through Pre-Sales Academy. Know your why. Know why you're here. Know what you're wanting to do. I found PSA because I loved connecting with people. I loved solving different challenges creatively, and I didn't know how to get there. It took another person that pointed me into the direction of Pre-Sales Academy, going through the same process that you guys are going through, having those same questions, and feeling confident enough in myself to just go ahead and take that plunge. So I definitely encourage you guys to start it if you're looking for that career pivot, if you're feeling stuck, even if you just have an interest in pre-sales, start the process. Just go ahead and do it. You will literally not regret it. Everything that these guys have told you so far, 100% true. And I have zero regrets. The one thing that I will say that I really valued about what they gave me, and it was mentioned before, those practical exercises and that mentorship is going to mean everything. There were things that I thought that I was great with, and come to find out, there was things that, I could have brushed up on. Wasn't so great at knowing how to ask certain questions. Wasn't so great at exactly knowing how to run meetings in ways that I wanted to run meetings. And now I'm at a startup that I never thought that I could be at, in an industry that I never thought that I would be in. And every single day, I'm using those communication tools. I'm asking those questions that I was taught to ask. I'm still in contact with my mentors and coaches and get tips from them every single day, and have shared so many things with my company as best practices that they've continued to use and continued to teach. And like I said, I'm just a beginner. The process is very quick. Those 10 weeks are going to be over in a flash, but again, so worth it, and cannot thank you guys enough. When it comes to actually going through the program, I know it can look a little bit intense, but that time really, really protected. I found myself even on my little 15-minute breaks during the day, getting on PSA, doing something. So by the time it got to the end of the day for me, I really didn't have so much to do besides join the classes those 3 to 4 times a week, but I actually had things of value to add. So definitely protect your time, definitely take it seriously, because like I said, it's worth it. You're going to pick up those technical skills, you're going to build that confidence in pre-sales, and you're going to build that relationship within that PSA network, which has been amazing for me. Like I said, this is a milestone that I never thought that I would get. I went from being an SDR, took a huge hop, skip, and jump, kind of past the AE phase, past the solutions engineer phase. And now I'm looking at how in the world did I get to a regional sales spot to where I am hosting those meetings every single day, figuring out what the needs of my clients are, knowing how to put that picture together now of quickly, okay, this is what they're needing. I have my ideas on deck. I know how to organize this. These are things that I never would have gotten without going through this program. So just take advantage of everything that these guys are saying and everything that they're giving you. Take those mock interviews seriously. Take advantage of that resume building. Leverage the network. Invaluable, like I said. As far as just kind of in closing, what I want to give you guys is really, like Nina said, stay curious and stay open-minded, especially when it comes to something as new as this. And I really want to stress the importance of leveraging those resources and that network and those relationships that you are going to get through this program that you are not going to get elsewhere. You will see the success from it as long as you remain patient, remain persistent in that career journey. Like she said, if you are not a person who is really good as far as collaborating with other people, being okay with taking that humility and knowing that you're not going to know everything, but having that confidence with the tools that they have given you, it's going to do wonders for your career journey. And those goals that you have set for yourself, you're going to see yourself there a lot faster than you imagined, or if you were to do it on your own. Again, I want to talk about that community. You are going to get such a great community of mentors and peers, and even being able to go back and talk to people like Nina and Liz. Like I'm constantly kind of updating Nina on what's going on and what I'm doing, because honestly, I get excited about it. And I tell as many people as I can that are interested in making a pivot or interested in going into pre-sales and don't know how they can get there from whatever background they're in. This really is a way to get there. So just be open to that advice, be open to your mentors that you're going to get, be open to your coaches as well as your advisors, because they're often going to see things in you that you had never thought about, which was the case for me. So I just want to thank you guys just for the awesome 10 weeks that I did spend with you guys, for the support that you gave after the fact, the support that you still give me now. And like I said, I just want to encourage you guys as prospective students to trust the process and go ahead and take that leap, because it's very much worth it.
Oh, thank you so much, Mel. I'm so glad you're at a company that you are pumped about.
Oh, I
And
love it.
it's just, I feel like your role is like one of those great examples that, like, yes, everyone thinks of like, oh, I go into PreSales Academy to go into a typical sales engineer role. What you learn here can go into a variety of roles.
And it really does. And that just to key in on something that you said earlier, there's so many different names for this role. And I know I said regional sales manager, but what I am doing every single day is everything that I sat here with you guys and learned. Like I'm not necessarily having to go that deep into discovery. That's more on the SDR side, but running those platform tours, demos, knowing what they need, just learning how to keep track of those things, keep track of who you're talking to, even down to how you're talking to these people. Those are things that you're going to get here.
Yeah, exactly. And every company is going to be different on how they're classifying these roles. So just keep that in mind in your search process. But if y'all have any questions for Mel, please drop it in the Q&A. I will bring them up when we're switching to questions and answers section very shortly, but I do have a couple more slides to share with you all to wrap up this session. So let's get into them and then we can answer your questions. So last couple of slides for y'all. So we like to say that PreSales Academy is an investment in your future. So there are tuition options when going and exploring PreSales Academy. I'd like to be just upfront about that because something like this and the level of support is not free, but we have 2 tuition options. We have upfront tuition of a little under 5K. People do it in 2 installments. We are running an early bird discount for our next cohort. So if you do apply before the end of this week, you will get $500 off your tuition, which is a great savings. So we do like to reward our friends who want to take the leap and get into this. And as well, we do have a more deferred tuition option through our partners at Klein Credit. So that is more of a loan option. It is based off how much you are approved for. So you could do a partial or full loan. Happy to go into the details of either tuition option with anyone if anyone has a question on it. But these are our options. And we are accepting applications now for our next cohort, cohort 17, which is crazy to think we're up into these numbers already, but our priority deadline for this cohort is the end of January. So you do have a little bit of time if you don't want to jump in on the early bird discount deadline, but this next cohort will be starting in the early spring. So I highly recommend submitting your application so that we can get you into the process, chat more, and make sure that the upcoming cohort dates are going to serve you well. So we are excited for you to learn a little bit more. Let's dive into some Q&A for today. I saw some good ones in the chat, so let's get into this. One question I'm going to pose to you, Mel. So we know within all these solutions roles, there's a variety of technical skills required. I would love for you to speak a little bit more about like what technical skills did you really need to kind of like ramp up or even utilize in your current role?
Absolutely zero. Microsoft Office, that's it. That is it. When it comes to technical, like you're really going to learn how to kind of back off and just focus on what you need to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I needed no technical skills whatsoever.
Yeah. And I think that goes into the bigger picture is there's a variety of sales solutions roles out there. There are roles that are very tech light, and then there's roles that are tech heavy. And I think that's why we like to focus on technical curiosity as a skill that's necessary for this role, because, hey, you know, some roles will require you to learn more. Others will require you to learn a little bit less. But in the end, you still need to be learning throughout the process. I'm curious, Mel, like what was the process of learning about your product at your company like for you?
For me, it actually wasn't, okay. I won't say it was difficult, but it's definitely a learning curve. Every day I'm learning something. Every day I'm running to the CEO, asking him questions, and I'm pretty sure it's annoying, but you know me, I'm going to ask a question. But really, when I say it's so worth it because it's honestly not as intimidating as you think. Learn your product. Understand, again, like I said, know your why, not just for why you want to do the role, but for what you're doing as well. Whatever your interest is, whatever that field is that you think you're going to go into, learn about your company, learn about the companies that you're looking at, even if you're not there, because you're going to want to get in those people's faces as soon as you're finished to let them know that you know about their company. You can learn about other things later. You can learn about those details later. Don't worry about that now, but just keep an open mind and always be willing to learn.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like one thing I always suggest as people jump into new companies and new roles is like, hey, you need to be that person who hits the ground running. You need to put yourself in spaces where, you are going to feel uncomfortable because you're not going to know everything, but you need to lean into that learning and become that person who wants to go above and beyond, because that will allow you to make a really good impressions with those you work around and allow you to make a really good foundation that you can grow off of at a company as well.
Yes, that confidence is definitely key. And that was a major factor for me, because I knew that I had the tools, regardless of what the job was going to be. I knew I had the base tools. All I need to learn is whatever the technical terms are for the industry or whatever the jargon is for that industry. And that's something that you're going to learn later. So focus on the now and having that confidence of, I know I have the skills. I know I can do this. You guys know I can do this because I have this background.
Yeah, no, very well said. I have a question here that's asking about like a sweet spot for a career change. Mel, how far along in your SDR journey were you until you're like, hey, I need to make a change?
About 3 years.
Okay. Okay.
It was everything. I noticed everything was lateral moves. Nothing, there was no availability or education to move up or
Yes.
even move kind of into upwards into different departments. So that's when I was like, I'm going to have to do this myself. Who's going to help me get there?
Oh, that's fair. And I think that's something that kind of makes me think for everyone, there's no like sweet spot to make a career change. It's going to look really different for different people. I've had people come into this program who are like, hey, I've had a little bit of sales experience and I'm ready to make this shift and lean in. I've had other people who are like, hey, I have been in the education industry for 10 years. I'm sick of this. I need to make a change. And I think that's something to keep in mind as a career changer is there's no perfect time to make this shift. It's really about, okay, when am I ready to put in the effort, put in the extra time to get myself to the finish line? Because if you're not ready to put that extra time in, then the timing's not going to be right for you. But there's no perfect time of like, I've been in X years in this industry and I need to make this shift. Because ultimately, the pre-sales role, it is one, even though majority of our students are looking at these roles that might be labeled as more associate or entry level, it is a role that does really value having some form of a transferable experience you could bring into the role, because it's more of like, I like to say, even though these roles that majority of people are looking at are like entry level, they're actually a little bit more like mid-career roles, because you do need to have something behind you to make the shift. And that's something important to keep in mind is like, it is really hard without past experiences to lean on to make the shift, because you need to have something under your belt, whether that is like any transferable experience. You just can't jump in from like zero to this role. I would say if someone's coming into the space and like, hey, I'm coming fresh out of high school or undergrad and I don't have any working experience, I might recommend a different path before coming into this area. But there's never like a perfect time to make this change. I've seen people do it early on in their career, middle career, towards the end of like, hey, I'm towards the end of my career here. I'm looking for something new to spend the last 10 years of my career before I retire. So that's something just to keep in mind. So I appreciate that question
Nina, if I
chat.
can also add a little something here as well, coming from someone who's been in the industry, seen a lot of these things, managed folks, had folks come in more mid-career and shifting. It does depend on what your background is and
True.
what product you're trying to go into. For instance, let's just say if you're more on the technical side and you haven't had some of the sales experience. One, I think this program would be great just because you're gaining a lot of that experience and how to sell, how to talk to people, how do you demo, how do you communicate. But one thing I will say is that technical role is going to be a little bit easier for you because you're going to have that knowledge already, which is very transferable, and they're going to love that. They're going to say, okay, well, you've done maybe the role, or you've helped someone in this that is very similar to who you're talking to, and that experience is super huge. So it's not just about, hey, you're transitioning into this ubiquitous role. It's thinking about what are the skills and uniqueness that you have, and this is some of the things that we talked about in the program. What are the things that make you unique and would help you get that right role? Because that's what's really important. It's not just getting a pre-sales role, it's getting the right pre-sales role for you.
No, very well said, Liz.
To add to that, Liz, that is definitely key. One thing that really stuck with me is I really learned where I add value because, like I said, I'm at a company where literally everybody that I work with was K through 12 teachers. There's only a few of us who have come from different backgrounds, but being able to speak to that and having that confidence and, like I said, knowing where I came from and knowing how I could add value to them and being okay with asking those questions. Big again, be comfortable with asking questions because you're going to be doing it all day in your pre-sales role, but it's also going to teach you like how to even talk to the people that you're working with, even if you're in those unfamiliar environments, because you know they're also going to be coming to you with questions because they may not necessarily have the background that you do. So again, be comfortable with collaborating, be comfortable with asking those questions, and know where you add value.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's just what's kind of been I've been seeing as a common theme in the job search process, which kind of goes into another question in the Q&As. Plus, if anyone has any additional questions that we can't answer today in this session, please reach out. I'm more than happy to chat in another one-on-one session or over email. But the job search process can be difficult at times. And I think it's difficult when people aren't taking the time to figure out what's their value add, what makes them unique, because that's what the hiring managers are looking for. They're looking for someone to complement their team or build it up. Sometimes, yeah, if a role exists in a specific vertical, they might want people who have experience in that industry. But other times they might want someone who brings something new, a new perspective, a new angle to complement the team. And I think that's something to keep in mind is like, you need to think about, hey, what's unique about you? How are you standing out in the process? Because that is what's going to resonate a lot with hiring managers nowadays. And I think the best way to do that, not only in initial application, but is also how are you networking with people? Like that's something we've been constantly talking about in this session is the power of networking. You need to build connections with people to tell your story better, to be successful making this shift. And hey, it takes a while to get that build up over time. So we are at the top of the hour. Liz, Mel, do you have any final words to leave our attendees with before I wrap up?
Trust the journey and know your worth and be comfortable being uncomfortable sometimes.
I love that.
I mean, I don't think I can top that. So
That's fair. No, I completely agree. Well said, Mel. So thank you all for being here. If you have any questions, please reach out to us at info@presalesacademy.com. I will send a follow-up email to everyone registered to this session so you get the right information, the right contacts. But thank you for being present and have a good rest of your Wednesday, everyone. Bye.